Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our workshop on mastering dominant personalities. How do you win their respect and get their buy-in? Now, before we get started, put in the chat, who is the dominant personality in your life? What inspired you to show up today? Maybe it's your manager, maybe it's your teammate, cross-functional partner, senior leadership, your report. Put in the chat, who's that person in your life, that toxic personality? Editor-in-chief, former manager, senior leadership, district VP, executive leadership, my CEO, I'm an executive assistant, manager, clients, former manager, my teammate, my mom, appreciate that, my teammate, I love it, boss, CEO, lots of previous as well. I'm sorry to hear that, Summer. Teammate, VP, sometimes me. Thank you for that honesty. Love that, Angela. All are welcome here. I want to be a better leader. Yes, you can also use this to understand, like, how might you be showing up? How can you support people even if you are that dominant personality or if you're on the receiving end? I love that. Hopefully not toxic, but I think me, wow, I really love this. So many people like just commitment to themselves to how to show up better. Manager, lots of commonalities. I've had many of these in my life as a dominant personality. I definitely can relate to the manager. For me, it's been a big one has been one of my peers. When I was a product lead, we it's just a really tough situation. I'll share more with you. But yeah, as you're joining us, drop in the chat who's that dominant personality in your life, that toxic personality that has inspired you to come join us today around it. Perfect. I love all these shares. Thank you so much. We've already opened up in such a beautiful way. I love the energy. I love the vulnerability. Hi, everyone. I am Shivani Berry. I am the CEO and founder of Arise Leadership. And we are going to dive in today on how do you master dominant personalities? How do you win their buy-in and win their respect? Now, as I was telling you, I've definitely struggled with all of this before. So for me, when I was a product lead, I had to, my team was responsible for revamping a core piece of our product. And it had gone really well. As we rolled it out, it was then time to hand over part of the product over to the operations team. So I have to work very closely toward the director of operations, my counterpart. His name was David. And for the first month, the conversation was going really well. In our one-on-ones, he praised my team's work. He's like, I should walk him through our rush. And I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Very seamless. But then about 5 weeks into the transition, I found out that in an executive meeting that he was in that I couldn't attend, and neither could my boss, the chief product officer. He completely threw me and my team under the bus in front of our CEO and our COO, Chief Operating Officer. He questioned my team's work. He implied that we'd made a bunch of mistakes. And I was shocked about this because he'd never indicated this to me before. In fact, he'd always said, like, yeah, the decisions you made make a ton of sense. I felt thrown under the bus. My team's impact was diminished. It was brought into question. I was angry. And I was embarrassed. I was like, oh, what's this going to happen to my reputation? What's going to happen with my team? I went to talk to David about what had happened. But he didn't even listen to me. He just shut me down. I felt so dismissed. As I was trying to engage with them and just going through this experience, it made me question my own work. It made me question my decisions. It made me question, am I good at my job? This was all encompassing me for several weeks. So much so that I brought it home with me, this stress. I even one time was in a yoga class and I started crying in the middle of the yoga class. One of your most Zen moments, here I was just crying, tearing up because I was so stressed out about the situation. I was sad and angry that my team's impact wasn't carried through. My team was not getting negatively impacted by this. I had a really good standing before this and my reputation was getting impacted. While, I had a good standing with our senior leadership, they did begin to question, like, okay, like, should we dig more into this project? And what was the hardest part is I knew I couldn't avoid working with him. We don't get to pick the people that we work with. And so I just had to figure out a way to be able to collaborate with him, to be able to make sure to build that trust, to be able to get to a position where he wouldn't be putting me down. He wouldn't be dismissing me. So after a lot of different strategies, I finally figured out how to get buy-in from him, how to get him to respect my expertise, and for him to know that I'm not going to take any of this. How he treated me and my team is not okay. The strategy that I implemented worked so well that he actually ended up apologizing to me and my team for his actions. We then better collaborated together. I was still wary of him, but it got so much better that we were able to actually do this rollout in a really smooth way. When I learned how to get buy-in, I not only was able to win over difficult stakeholders like David, my team and I were able to have a better, bigger, and better impact. I was able to impact my executives and even go up all the way to the board of directors. As my CEO saw this rollout, he saw the great work we'd done. He tapped me to present to our board of directors at the quarterly meeting. Here I was in a not super senior role, presenting to the board of directors at a multi-billion-dollar company. Whoa, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually here. Out of that, one of the directors, the CFO of Best Buy, became one of my mentors. I got so many great opportunities coming out of that. And I felt more confident in my role now that I had David as an ally instead of a foe. I was able to drive a bigger impact and stand up for myself and advocate for my team. These experiences made me realize it shouldn't be so hard to know how to work with difficult personalities. And that's really what inspired me to quit my job in tech leadership and found Arise Leadership. Our mission is to elevate 1 million women into leadership. And I've seen not only myself, but thousands of our participants, our risers, have used the strategies that I'm going to share with you today to be able to win over difficult stakeholders, to have a voice at the table and get promoted faster. So I'm going to share a ton of free advice with you right now. And at the end, if you're interested, I'm going to share a bit about the Leadership Accelerator that I host for women that's coming up next month. So drop in the chat if you're interested in learning more about that program at the end. Now, I want this to be really engaging and really valuable for you. So as we're going through this, if you have any questions, drop it in the Q&A icon that's in the bottom right of your screen. And if anything resonates with you, drop it in the chat. This is a juicy, sensitive topic. And as you can see, so many of us have a shared experience here. We're all on all sides of this. So as we're going through this, feel free to drop in the chat if something really resonates with you, if you can relate to it, if you've had a similar experience. I want to hear from you. All right, so let's get started and let's start talking about how to navigate these situations. And before we do, I want to set the stage for this. So drop in the chat, why do you think some people ascend faster than others? Why do you think some people get promoted faster than others? We all have those colleagues that move up faster, that get the opportunity, that get to speak at roles that you're like, I didn't get to do that. How do they get there so fast? So drop in the chat. Charisma helps, influence easily, confidence, because they put themselves first. They put their development first. Strong personality, read people easier, ability to promote themselves more easily. Who move faster, easy to work with. They know how to play the game. Yep. These are really, really good. More likable. They talk the talk, friendly with the right people. Yeah, they know the right people, confidence, charisma. These are all completely right. Really, it all boils down to is the leaders at the top are there because they are skilled at influencing. They know how to get people bought into their ideas. They know how to get people to follow along with them. And if you think about it, it makes sense. As a leader, you don't actually do the work, right? You guide your team to do the work as a manager. The more you move up, the less you actually get into the day-to-day of coding or executing or hopping on sales calls, and the more you're actually guiding your team around it. You're blocking and tackling for your team. It's like a conductor at a symphony. She doesn't actually play the beautiful music herself. She guides musicians to play beautiful music. So if you want to get people to follow you, if you want those dominant personalities to follow you, you have to know how to influence. You have to know how to get people bought into your ideas, how to get them to trust you. Because the thing is, great ideas aren't enough. You have to break it down for them. Same way at your company spends millions of dollars on sales and marketing. Because even though you have a good product, you still have to convince people why your product is good, especially when it comes to difficult stakeholders who have very low trust of the value that you bring to the table. Think about it this way. You're probably using one or more of Apple's products right now. They have amazing, amazing products. Yet they spend over $2 million in sales and marketing every single year. So if Apple is doing that, then if Apple has to market its ideas and products, and you have to market your ideas, this is not a field of dreams. This is not a, if I build it, they will come. You have to be able to execute on it. So around this, I know you might be thinking right now that like, yeah, that makes sense. But the thing, and you might be like, yeah, but there's a secret language. It feels like everybody just knows how to do it. The good thing is there is no secret language. It might feel like, yeah, but to win over these people, I have to play this political game. I have to feel really icky. I don't want to play their game. I don't want to see around this. The good news is there is no secret language to influence. There is a step-by-step playbook, but it can feel really authentic. Actually, the best way to do this is when you do it in a really respectful, transparent, and authentic manner. So, and if everyone's having, I just kind of played around with the screen. So if it's working for you now, just drop it in the chat around it. And so we're around this. Like, I want to dig into this a little bit more because, you know, when I was asking the question, why do people ascend faster than others? A lot of you talked about charisma, knowing how to play the game. And the thing about that, I want to focus on that. People knowing how to play the game, it doesn't come naturally. People learn how to play the game. And that's what we're going to talk about here. I'm going to give you a sneak peek into that. Because remember, there is no secret language. You can all learn how to do it. It's a step-by-step formula that you can learn how to influence. It's the same way as you learned how to bake a cake. At first, you had no idea what you were doing. And then you followed the recipe. You put in like the cake, you put in the sugar, you put in the water, you put in the flour, the eggs, and then you put in the oven, and your first couple of cakes probably sucked. But then you kept doing it over and over again, and you mastered it. It's the same way as winning over your team, winning over these difficult stakeholders. The more you practice what we're going to talk about today, the more you can implement around it and have success around it. Let me share an example of that with you in real life. So this is Kendi. She's a marketing manager at Box. Now, in week 4 of the leadership program, she got dropped into a last-minute meeting that her manager could not attend. She had an hour to go. It was a really important meeting. She had to get buy-in from critical stakeholders on budget. And here, where, this is stressful. We've all gotten dropped into last-minute meetings before. You know how stressful she's feeling, panicky, like, oh, I got to make sure I nail this. I have to make sure I look good. I have to make sure, like, I don't want to let my team down. So what does she do? Well, she uses program tools to help her prepare, especially for one of the 3 stakeholders was a really difficult personality. In meetings, he tended to just like ignore her ideas. He just like zoned out when she started speaking. He cut her off before she could finish sharing her rationale. And so she was super nervous about this person, especially very anxious going to the meeting. But she used a program tools to help her prepare, including thinking about proactively what are the concerns that person might have. In that meeting, by the end of the 30-minute meeting, she was able to successfully answer everyone's concerns and questions and get a yes from everyone, including that difficult stakeholder. She came out of the meeting feeling more successful and empowered than she ever had been. That is a big thing when you know how to influence, when you know how to get buy-in in any situation, and last-minute meeting, ad hoc, hallway conversation, when you're dropped in with a really tense person, a jerk, you know how to navigate that situation. So you feel more at peace, you feel more confident in that moment. And so I really want to emphasize this. Knowing how to influence, knowing how to get buy-in helps you collaborate dominant personalities. This is the key underlying skill that's going to help you be successful. And I'll give you a couple of tips on how to go do this. So let's first talk about what is a dominant personality, who they are. Because the thing is, like I've said before, working with dominant personalities is unavoidable. We don't get to pick who we get to work with, right? But working with dominant personalities hurts our careers, hurts our reputation. We don't know how to navigate that situation. It stalls our career growth. In my experience, when people question my work, they weren't going to give me better projects. They weren't going to give me more senior roles. They weren't going to promote me. You have to know how to work with these stakeholders, especially as you get more senior. You don't have air cover. You have to learn how to navigate these situations. It was mentally draining. I told you, I even cried in a yoga class. I thought about it all the time. I felt stupid. I felt stressed. So put in the chat, how do you feel when you work with a dominant personality? With that manager, with that CEO, with your counterpart, with your report? How do you feel when you work with a dominant personality? Put in the chat. Diminished. Oh, I love that. Cautious, frustrated, undermined, insecure, small, confused, eek, unheard, less than, on the back foot, angry, intimidated, demotivated, nervous, weak, lack of confidence, inauthentic, frustrated, aggravated. I hope you're all reading this and just realizing you're not alone in any of this. Like, I don't even need to try, for sure. No matter what I say, it's not going to matter to them. I'm not going to be able to convince them. Walking in eggshells, overwhelmed. Yes. Yes. Like, I have to hide me in my role. Yes. Yes. Not enough. Drained. Thank you for all this honesty. Self-doubt. Need to have a lot of patience. Yes. Yes, for sure. Patience and grit around it, for sure. Frustrated, wondering if I'm gaslighting myself. Yeah. Inadequate. And so again, just recognizing you're not alone in this. It doesn't make it go away, but I want to just like take a moment and have you see that. Because when we're dealing with these situations at work, it's isolating. And that's one goal for me through our programs is creating that community where we have shared experiences and we can actually talk about it. And here you're getting a peek of that. And let's talk about why working with dominant personalities is so hard. They don't take our ideas seriously. They don't respect our expertise. How many times have you gone in and even though you have tons of experience in this area, they question you like, oh, do you really know what you're talking about? In your mind, like, yes, I've worked on this for several years. I've worked on this project for like so long. I know exactly what I'm talking about and I have data to prove it, but you're still ignoring me. They don't listen to us and they don't value what we have to bring to the table. They think we're extra. Like someone said, I feel like I have to hide in my role. No matter what I say, it won't matter. So before we talk about how to tackle them, let's talk about who is a dominant personality. What do they look like? What motivates them? Because part of identifying that will help you better work with them. One, they prioritize results over relationships. So they care more about hitting the target than they do about making you feel better. They're going to be okay with rubbing you the wrong way if it's going to make sure that they hit this goal, if they close this new sales deal, if they launch this product. They care about results over relationships. They overvalue prestige. They're often social climbers. They're going to constantly think about, are you making them look good? If not, then you're not that valuable to them. They constantly think about, okay, and you know these people as I'm talking about it. They're constantly thinking about, okay, like I need to associate myself with this person because they have a more senior title, or if I'm with this person, that I'll look really good, but you don't really have that great of a title. So like, even though in reality, you're probably the most useful person to them, they're overvaluing that prestige. How do they make themselves look good in front of senior leadership? How do they make themselves look good to themselves? And they have lack of empathy. They don't even realize how they're making you feel, even if it's not intentional. Now, people can be in any of these three buckets. They can have one or more of these three buckets. So put in the chat, which category or categories does your dominant personality fall into? 1, 2, or 3, or all? They're prioritizing relationships, prioritizing results over relationships, overvaluing prestige, lack of empathy, all of the above, 3, all, 1, all of the above, 2 plus 3, 1, all of them, full menu, all, lack of empathy, overlying prestige. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So now that you're identifying this and it helps you understand how do they operate because they're operating different than you. And so when you understand their motivations, then that's part of influencing. When you can understand their motivations, you can better understand where they're coming from. You can have a better call of like what's going to work and what's not going to work. And the thing you constantly need to realize when you're working with these difficult stakeholders, they're always doing the game in their mind. What value do you bring to them? How are you going to help them? So it's less collaborative, and maybe sometimes they are collaborative as a team, but when they feel threatened or when they feel like and oftentimes they have good intent. They're actually trying to make sure the project is successful. They're trying to make sure the company does well, but they miss the mark. And I can say this personally because also like I can be a dominant personality and I've worked with dominant personalities. And when I put myself in like the times when I have been a dominant personality, it is really a time when I'm like, I care about the team, I care about the company, but I'm not processing, hey, my actions are making my team feel bad. I just care about we're going to be successful if we push this idea out. Oh, good. I'm glad Susan just shared in the chat. This is such a light bulb moment. I'm glad to see that. Thank you. Good. I'm glad. Like, share more of this. Like, this is such a communal experience that we can have here right now. I feel so grateful for that. And so if you don't bring the value, then they're going to ignore you or they're going to take advantage of you. And so when you're fully aware of these things, you can be better prepared to respond and navigate these situations. And I really do want to call out with everything that we've talked about, these are not necessarily bad people. People are complex people. We have to view people holistically. So maybe in this part, maybe in your interactions with them, they are really difficult to work with. They can be toxic. Remember, it's not always intentional. Again, that doesn't make it okay. But I do want to call out, this doesn't mean that they're like terrible people. There's obviously the jerks, but most people are well-meaning. They're not realizing how they're coming across, or often they don't care. And that doesn't make it okay around it too. So speaking of that, let's tell the difference between an asshole and a dominant personality. So that's a big difference because once you are able to identify between it, your expectations will be different. An asshole, and part of my language around this, but really there's no better way to describe them. And you know there is. And so perfect. That made me LOL. I love it. So yeah, okay. So here's the things that you can think about for the asshole. They don't have good intent. They don't have curiosity. Often bias is coming into this. They want to cause pain. They don't really care about how you feel. And pretty much anything that you do will not change their mind. So process that. When you think about these difficult people that you're working with at work, do you feel like they have good intent, or are they just in here and they're like, I don't really care what you have to say. Like, I'm not trying it for the good of the team. I'm really just in it for myself. And the reason why it's really important to differentiate is because an asshole, you can learn how to survive. You can put them in check, but there's lower chances of actually having a breakthrough. So it sets your expectations, right? Like instead of always just like trying like, okay, this situation will get better. We'll get better. Unfortunately, sometimes it's accepting like the situation might get marginally better, but in general, they're always going to be really difficult to work with. And I need to figure out how to sustain myself in these situations. Versus a dominant personality, change can happen. Often it's bringing a light bulb moment to them and just making them aware, here's how your interactions are making me feel. Here's how our interactions are making my team feel. Telling them, putting them into check around it. So asking yourself, am I working with an asshole or a dominant personality? Put in the chat, which one is it that you've recognized for yourself? Barbara, I love that. That makes sense. Good. I'm glad. I'm really glad. Dominant personality. Yep. A lot dominant personality. Some I'm not sure. some assholes. And that's okay. Like you will figure this out as you go. And also sometimes you're going to try these methods and better understand and process. And luckily here we see a lot of dominant personalities around it. And here's some strategies you can use to work with it. And again, like for yours, if you're like, oh, actually it's the asshole, it's using these strategies still will be really useful to you, but also setting expectations around like, I also need to figure out how to make this sustainable for me. And, you know, the strategy I'm sharing with you, like I've said before, are ones that have worked for me and thousands of risers. And so really, you know, here it's thinking about, let me share a couple of examples with you to help illustrate that. So this is Althea. She joined our Rise Leadership Program because she was having a really hard time working with two critical stakeholders for her. One was a chief technology officer. And given that she was in a product role, the chief technology officer was a really critical stakeholder for her. He was not including her in key meetings. She felt really dismissed. He was not really listening to ideas that she was bringing to the table. It was actually hurting her reputation. She wasn't getting promotion at the timeline that she should have. So it was actually slowing down her growth. And it was just, she was stressed. She felt defeated. She was drained. She was exhausted from constantly having to battle this at work. So she decided to do something about it and join our leadership program. She wanted to have the tools to figure out, how do I navigate this situation? So she was able to use the program tools to actually get buy-in from this CTO in a way that, like, think about how does he operate and how do I need to position my ideas in order to get him supported what I'm saying. She also used the program tools to give feedback to him about how his actions made her feel attacked. Now that's scary. Going to a dominant personality, especially a senior executive, and telling them that their actions made you feel attacked is high risk and very scary. But she felt more comfortable doing so because she was able to practice within the safe space of our program and then go and have the conversation. It went so well that they had a breakthrough in the relationship. It transformed their relationship. He now comes to her to seek out her opinion. That's a dream, right? That's what happens when you know how to work with dominant personalities. You're able to win over and turn people who were against you into your allies. But it takes skill that you can learn, but it takes skill and practice and commitment to do so. When you do, it is such a big confidence booster. So let's talk about, how do you work with these dominant personalities? First, a big one is you can't see every encounter as a showdown. And so what I mean by that is, think about the meetings when you go into, especially when you go into it, someone difficult stakeholder. We usually bring our armor. We're like ready for war. We're ready for negotiation. It's us against them. But we have to change our mindset. We have to feel like collaborative. And so really thinking about, you can't think about it as a showdown. Because when you do, it comes through in how you're engaging with them. It comes through in how you're talking. It comes through in your tense. And they see that. They see that fear. They see that anxiety. So really change that mindset. Another big one is being able to conquer imposter syndrome. If you have self-doubt about your abilities, if you are thinking, is this idea good enough? Am I qualified to be my role? If you don't believe in yourself, then why should anyone else? So really thinking about that, having the mindset shift, investing the time to conquer that imposter syndrome and building self-confidence is incredibly important in this battle to win over and better collaborate with these difficult stakeholders. And finally, you have to be skilled at influencing. Knowing how to get people bought into your ideas, knowing how they operate, and how do you present your ideas in a way that's compelling, that wins their respect. For example, knowing that when I'm going to meet with a stakeholder for the first time, I need to come in and have my intro buttoned up so that they are really impressed by me, because first impressions matter. And then when I'm positioning ideas, I can't just say like, here's what I think we should do. You need to bring in data, especially with people who are new to you, who are these like people who have tend to doubt your abilities more. So you're no longer asking them to support your idea because you said so. You're asking them to support your idea because it's a good idea. That is how you actually win their respect. When you are able to shift your mindset, feel more confident, when you are more skilled at influencing. Part of the influencing also is leveraging allies. Social proof is powerful. Having your manager or your colleagues vouch for you and say, you know what, Patricia is a point person on this project. Please make sure to loop her in when you have a question. Or Susan has had a ton of experience in this area before. She's worked on a similar domain. Let's make sure we get her input on what's worked for well and how she thinks we should be navigating this problem. When that dominant personality is hearing that, they're like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, if they think that she has good expertise, then maybe I should too. They reconsider it. So, showing you kind of like a real life example around this. This is Ellie. So Ellie graduated from the program about 2 years ago, and she had come in and she was sharing that one of her, like for her dominant personality, a big one was her manager. Now that's incredibly hard when the person who is in the most control of how your career does is that toxic personality. She found it super draining, and just it was just causing a lot of like self-doubt in her mind. It was causing a lot of problems at work, a lot of friction. I know you can relate to this because many of you are going through this right now. And so, within their Rise community, she was able to find that she realized that, oh, actually, a lot of my peers, a lot of other women at top companies from around the world have similar situations. It's not just me. In her own words, she said she found it very validating. And then she realized that, oh, there's actually hope. I can actually do things to change around the situation. So for example, she was able to reframe the relationship using the program strategies. She used the program tools to help her realize that she's actually not the problem. She's not crazy. She's not less than, in her own words. These were the realizations she had during the program around it. Realizing she doesn't need to get more experience. She is qualified and she knows what she's talking about. And then she used a program strategy to understand that I can cope and compartmentalize this. I can actually have strategies to make the situation better. She realized she always needs to be prepared. Always think about how can I be better collaborative? How can I make sure this is a win-win for both of us? How do I make sure I can make him look good? Because remember, a lot of dominant personalities care about looking good. Now, everybody does, but they over-index on it. And the strategy she used didn't feel icky. It didn't feel gross. It was actually very natural. It made her a stronger player across the company, not just with collaborating with this manager, who, by the way, she was able to turn into an advocate for her. So she realized at the end of the day, instead of when she came into the program, she's like, this is a hopeless situation. I feel so drained. I can't do anything about it. And she was able to use the program tools to help her realize, like, actually, there is hope. There is strategy she can do. A lot of it started with her own mindset and then learning how to influence. So in summary, what we really talked about today is, why is working with dominant personalities anxiety inducing? The difference between a dominant personality and asshole. Because remember, there is a difference in identifying that, understanding how they operate will help you set the right expectations for how you want to navigate this. And what are some strategies that you can use to win over dominant personalities, including building allies, winning their respect? How do you better collaborate with them? So in Arise, we're all about action. I want you to take a moment and think about, where do you want to be 6 months from now? Maybe for you, I want to be promoted. Maybe it is, I want that person to recognize a value in me. I want them to stop putting me down. Maybe for you, I want to feel less anxious going into these conversations. I want to land a new growth opportunity. What is that for you? Where do you want to be in 6 months? So by early next year, where do you want to be? And then what's one strategy that you're going to apply right away? We've talked a lot about here. What's the strategy that you're going to apply right away? Maybe you're going to tackle that self-doubt, the lack of confidence, the belief in yourself, imposter syndrome. Maybe you're going to learn how to influence, how to get buy-in. You're going to think about always having data anytime you speak. Maybe you're going to take a step back and identify, okay, which bucket of the 3 buckets I shared with you does my dominant personality fall into? Drop it in the chat. What's one strategy that you're going to apply right away? Drop that in the chat. Is it going to be tackling imposter syndrome? Is it going to be leveraging allies to gain the respect of your dominant personality? Working self-doubt? Thanks for sharing that. Is it going to be make sure you don't see every encounter as a showdown? Asserting confidence and imposter syndrome, leveraging allies. Yeah, these are really good. Thank you for sharing these. Drop them in the chat. What's one strategy you're going to apply right away? Influence. Great. Let's take 10 more seconds. So don't overthink it. Just drop it in the chat. Remember, this is about creating action. You invested the time to show up. I love the chat. There's so many this is so helpful. There's a light bulb moment, aha moment. So let's translate that for yourself. What's one action you're going to take? Believe in my own skills and I can always learn more. I love that, Notori. Working on imposter syndrome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Lucy. So these are awesome. And now, in Arise, we're all about action and accountability. So I really want you to think about, okay, how am I actually going to implement this? So for here around it, it's like thinking about, what actions can I take to be able to actually tackle my imposter syndrome, to actually influence? What does that actually mean? What are the step-by-step that you're going to do around this? So, and then actually going to do it, because we're all busy. End of the year is coming up, reviews are coming up, holidays are coming up. How are you going to make sure that you actually stay on track? Because remember, these are the things that actually hurt your ability to get promoted, that hurt your ability to move up, to get new opportunities. In Arise, we handpick and curate small groups of high caliber, low ego women like you from top companies who understand your challenges. And we put them in small groups. So it's a really nice way to, one, get shared experiences and share your experiences and get input from other people who know exactly what you're going through. It's powerful. Even right here, when you're sharing, this is how I felt in that meeting in that moment, people get it. You don't have to explain that feeling. You don't have to explain how difficult it is, how draining it is. And then part of this is also, when we create these groups, it's also a great accountability to help make sure that you are implementing it even when things get busy. So I highly, highly recommend you go do this. Ideally, you do it with a group of women that are outside your company, because then it becomes not biased. You don't have to worry about things getting back to your manager or to that dominant personality. You can just openly share, because that's when the real growth happens. So if you're thinking yeah, that sounds really great, but I don't really know how to create this group. I don't know how to get started. I'm busy. I just want someone to do this for me. Then I'd love for you to come join us in the Rise Leadership Accelerator. And we can basically create those groups for you and give you the tools that you need to navigate these situations. We go deep. So really, this is for you. The program is for you. If you're someone who wants to get a yes in your recommendation, even from dominant personalities, you want to be confidently speak up. So if you're right now holding back on speaking up in meetings, you're not sure if you have the best answer, you're not sure if you're senior enough, you're embarrassed, afraid of being shut down, and you want to change that, and you want to be able to speak up in meetings confidently, even when you don't have perfect information, even when senior leadership is present, this is for you. For example, we had Satang. She is a program manager at Twilio, a multi-billion-dollar public company. And she was she would tell you herself, she is very shy. She tends to hesitate to speak up in meetings, especially with senior leadership. And so shortly after the program, she was in a meeting with senior executives, including the chief financial officer. And as they're discussing budget, normally Satang would avoid speaking up in that meeting, but in that moment, she spoke up and she asked for $1 million of budget for her team in order to actually achieve the goals. She presented her idea in a really compelling way, so much so that on the spot, the CFO gave her $1 million. Can you believe that just by using these tools that we covered in a 6-week program? And that's where, if you want something like that, if you want to be able to stand up for yourself, make the ask for yourself, for your team, then this is really the place to do it. You want to be where your dominant personality seeks out your opinion, like how when David, for me, started coming to me and be like, what do you think about this? Apologized. If you want to get to that situation. And really that no matter, every time you speak up with that stakeholder, with any stakeholder, people listen. You feel at ease. It's like when you're driving down a road and you hit green light after green light after green light. It feels so good. If you want to feel like that at work, instead of feeling that anxiety, that dread, that tense, the friction when you're walking to that meeting. And really, if you're someone who's like, I need my leadership team to value me as irreplaceable, especially in these really difficult times, in these budget cuts, hiring freezes, the time is now for me. I need to make sure that they see me for like super valuable, irreplaceable, that they need me on their team and they need me on even larger projects. And you want to be on the fast track to get promoted. That's really a big reason why people join us. So if all that is resonating with you, then I'd love to come see you in the accelerator. It's a 6-week online program where you'll develop the practical skills to help you conquer imposter syndrome. A lot of you shared that right now. What are the step-by-step things you need to do to actually feel more confident in yourself, to feel happier, to feel less stressed, to be able to win over these difficult stakeholders in any situation, including last minute, in meetings, hallway conversations, to be able to give difficult feedback in a way that actually lands. What do you do when that person gets defensive? Basically all the topics that keep us up at night, but we never ever talk about. Getting buy-in from any level, being seen as a thought partner, having a voice at the table. You know, today I've shared with you stories from women from all these companies and more about how they got promoted faster, how they advocated for themselves, how they won over their difficult personalities. They turned them into being allies for them. For example, Katerina at Google, she used the program tools to interview for a more senior role at her company. Previously, she said she would ramble a lot. She also doubted her abilities, so she wouldn't really speak up about the achievements. And she was able to use the program tools to create a more clear narrative, a more compelling narrative to what actually the hiring manager cared about. She felt more confident, so it came across in how she presented herself. She had better executive presence. So much so that she was able to land that role. So if you are someone who, you know, I've shared so many stories of how people have moved up faster, have gained the respect they deserve, have gotten the recognition, have gotten better growth opportunities. Now, one quick thing on, you know, how this works is really, I really want to highlight that because that's a big part of this is, you know, we focus on learn by doing. So everything we will cover in the program has like step-by-step playbooks, including what do you do when things go wrong? Because I know basically all the other trainings out there, you're probably like, I've read a ton of books, I've watched a ton of seminars, I've done my company trainings, but I still don't know how to influence. I still don't know how to get people bought into my idea or like make sure my manager knows that how I'm spending my time is valuable. But here we cover it. People will use the program tools even 3+ years after they graduate. They call it like an emergency toolkit. No matter what situation I have at work, I know there's gonna be a tool in the RISE toolkit for that. The community, it is my favorite part. It's a community of high caliber, low ego women. It's empowering to recognize and realize that a bunch of other women from the best companies from around the world go through the same challenges as you. You're not alone, you're not crazy. You are not doing anything wrong. It's not you. And you get to learn faster because you get to learn from each other's experiences in addition to the curated experience. And we keep you on track. How many times have you said to yourself, I'm going to take actions to influence. I need to get more confident. I need to, you know, be better at collaborating with a stakeholder. It's probably showing up in your performance reviews, but yet you don't really know where to get started, where you get started, but then you get busy. You're like, I'm going to watch this training, but you never do. But because we've designed this program to one, fit with your schedule, but also have designed it so it's easy for you to do, you apply all the learnings directly to your work. We talk about storytelling, and then it's like, okay, use this 3-part framework to make a comment in a meeting. And that's really helped people get incredible transformative results within a couple of weeks of joining the program. So if this is resonating with you, then, especially because you're part of Girlboss, we have a special offer. You'll get a discount off tuition, which expires this Friday. We do have payment plans available. So if you're interested, you can just email us around it. And really, this is from what we've seen is people have reaped this investment back and much more. So for example, this is Jazz. She is a customer experience manager at Fair. She was in our cohort earlier this year. And when she joined, she was having a really difficult relationship with a key stakeholder who had a lot of influence over her career. She was also, struggling to how do I take on more within the company? And she was able to use the program tools to, one, build trust with that key stakeholder, so much so that he became an advocate for her and helped her and actually put her up for getting responsibility for new areas of their business. And she was able to better collaborate with her stakeholders, drive cross-functional alignment, and pitch herself to taking on more responsibility within the company. So by the end of the 6-week program, she was then promoted to take on 2 new critical business areas. And so that's what I mean. This is an investment that you get. People are always like, wow, the results are lightning fast. And so it's really thinking about, the return, our ROI, return on investment. So, for example, another riser, I shared Jazz's story with you, another riser got a 23,000 pay bump, a 15% raise after graduating from Arise Leadership. She got promoted, she got more equity options, she got a better title. And this was an investment for her. She got to return 20,000 plus back immediately. So if you're interested, apply today. Our cohort starts on October 19th. Now, we're going to drop the link in the chat. If you want to take a couple minutes, fill it out now, go for it. If you'd rather take a look at it later, if it's not a fit, that's totally cool. I will say we have only 14 spots left. So if you're interested, I would definitely apply now because we reserve spots first come, first serve. And especially if you want to get if you apply, you get a bonus private coaching session. And then also you get the tuition discount for being part of Girlboss. So if you're interested, apply ariseleadership.com/apply, mention the independence workshop, and we'll make sure to fast track your application around it. So really this is for you. If you are someone who wants to have a seat at the table, you want to be part of the decision-making process instead of just being told what to do, you're tired of that dominant personality putting you down, you're tired of them disrespecting you, and you want to have real change. You're ready to get promoted faster. You're ready to just invest in yourself and create that change. If this resonates, apply now, and we'll make sure to fast track your application. Now with that, let's dive into any questions. So drop any questions in the Q&A icon, and we can talk, we dive into all of them. So I see a question here around Barb. Are there some personalities that are not open to collaborating no matter what you try? Yeah, definitely. There are going to be people at work who you could do everything in your power and they still don't listen to you. And that is really draining. And I'd say a couple of things on this. One, anytime you're in general, a good practice at work is to always document what you're doing, but especially when you're working in these delicate, tricky situations, always document what are the actions you've taken to better work with, what are the actions that you're taking to better work with these stakeholders. So then later when the questions come up, or maybe your manager is being like, yeah, but you're not trying hard enough, or you should try this. You can be like, here's everything I've done so far around it. And then it's getting also creative around how do I loop in allies for this? So for example, one of the situations I had at work where me and a counterpart, actually that same David's popped up in my life many times around these issues, we had 2 different goals. So my team was essentially responsible for improving revenue and his team was responsible for decreasing costs. Now, there's many times when those 2 goals conflict. And in this situation, we were able, we just generally weren't able to try to figure out how to make it work. And this was after the big blow up I told you about. So we were more collaborative, but still there's obviously still some friction. And so our goals were just at conflict with each other. And then, I was trying to navigate the conversation. He wasn't super interested in listening around it or wasn't super receptive. And so ultimately we had to escalate it to our managers. But then ultimately the goals for our teams were decided by the CEO, so we had to escalate to them and to him. And it wasn't a bad situation that we escalated it because I had already tried so many other methods And ultimately, someone else had to step in because it was just like a nature of like the goals that both me and David's team had to hit. So where around like, there are definitely personalities that are not open to collaborating. And I think there it's one, documenting what you've done, and two, seeing how can I get creative around it. And then also understanding, okay, like what is a compromise? What is a situation? What's a realistic thing I can do? Like if this doesn't work out. Another question. So how do you keep your dominant personality in check, but also they're your manager and feel it's a potential fire me for challenging them too much? Ooh, yes, very delicate situation. So, this can go to anyone where, dominant, especially with managers, obviously is like really delicate, but even with others, especially people who have any kind of authority, you don't want them to like, you don't want to have backlash around it. And we talk a lot in the program, and we have that safe space to have like do the role plays and help you. So for example, Althea, the story I was sharing about her when she went and gave feedback to the chief technology officer about how his actions made her feel attacked. She actually practiced that within the safe space of the program, used the program tools, and then went and had the conversation. So she was very well set up for success. So I say before you go in to have those conversations, practice that with people who know what they're talking about and who are able to help you navigate this in a really strategic way. Then the other thing is, I would say in these situations, reframe it. Is you're not giving someone feedback, you're trying to figure out how to better collaborate with them. Position to what they care about. If your manager probably cares a lot about like all the work they have on their plate, they probably care a lot about making sure that they hit the team goals. And so from there, it's really thinking about like, I know this is a top priority, or I know you have a lot on your plate. I'd love to figure out, what is a better way for us to like, how can I better support you? Here's an idea I have. And so, for example, if they are, how do you put in check? I see another question right now in the chat around, what do you do with people who are like stealing credit? So let's say you have a lot of support for your ideas and from your allies, but your dominant personality steals credit. And so this could very easily be the manager around it. And so one way you get creative of how you can share the credit more widely. So one way that you could potentially do this is like, I know you have a lot on your plate. I also know it's like recognize it's really important for us to like share our work, our impact with the broader organization. How about I'm happy to like send out a regular update to, or like weekly update to the broader organization, or monthly, or whatever that cadence is. And you can say like, I can draft it. I'll send it to you for review, and then I can send it out. And that way you're like the front and center of this, like of the communication, right? You're putting your ideas forward, but then you're not like undermining the dominant personality, because your positioning is like, hey, you have a lot on your plate. And also it's important for us to get our impact out. So they win also. So why don't I take on this initiative and like go forth and do that? Another thing is like, here you can share like, like, let's say they're dumping a lot of last minute work on you. Then it's thinking about around, okay, like setting those processes up beforehand. And so if they dump last minute, like have the conversation sooner, like, hey, I totally recognize this project, like this last minute thing needs to get done. Here's like how I'm thinking about doing it. Here's like where I think there could be trade-offs, like because we don't have enough bandwidth. What do you think? Am I thinking about it the right way? So coming in with a lot of curiosity. Now we have like a step-by-step playbook on how to actually manage this within the program, but like those are some things I'll just say right now that you can really be mindful of and like start implementing. That curiosity, don't frame it as feedback. Position is like, how are they interested in it? So I see we have time for one more question. So from Lucy, what steps would you take to start rebuilding your confidence after a dominant personality has been shooting you down for a long time? That's a really good one. I know how draining it can be. I'm a recovering person from these situations. So I know how hard that can be. And here I'm now like talking to you about this and feeling so strong about this. So it is possible. And I've seen this happen with thousands of Verizon in the program. I think that the low confidence feeling, wanting to feel more confident in yourself, wanting to feel stronger, wanting to be someone that stakeholders really see as like a strong player on their team, have respect, not having those dominant personalities. We even had someone in a program where that person used to like literally put his hand in front of her face to get her to stop talking. So rude, right? Like what? Like how is that even professional? And she was able to use the program tools to like get him to stop doing that and talk to her in a more respectful manner. So really rebuilding your confidence is, I would say, recognize that it's not necessarily about you. don't take it personally. Often there's something going on at home for them that they're under pressure. They're stressed out at work. Maybe this project is really important to them to get promoted. Or maybe they don't even realize how they're making you feel. Now, obviously, none of this makes it okay, but recognizing that can be empowering in itself. And then it's like surrounding yourself with the community of women who like know what you're going through, being able to talk through it, and then getting the tools. Like I said, knowing how to influence is key around confidence building, because when you know how to present your ideas and when you go get that win, like we get people, like literally happens week one for so many people in the program. When you go to a meeting and you pitch an idea to someone who typically shoots you down, but you've used these like proven frameworks around it and you get a yes, that is such a huge confidence booster. So next time you speak up even more. So these are some things I would say start doing. Now, thank you everyone for your time. This has been the energy, the vulnerability, the shares have been so amazing. I'm so grateful to all of you. I hope this has been like helpful for you. I'm so glad to see all the like things and like the comments in the chat about how this has been a good light bulb moment. It's like helping you understand these situations better. So again, if you want to dive deeper into all of this, and if you really want to create real change, then come join us in Arise Leadership, and we'll drop the application link in the chat again. We only have a few spots left. And really just, I hope you take a moment before you hop into your next meeting or to end your day to really reflect on like, how are you going to create real change for yourself? Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm glad you found this helpful. So grateful for this time. Of course. Thanks, Trisha. Thanks, Lucy. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. This was amazing. Thank you again to everyone. Really just, I super appreciate all of you and good luck with this. This is a hard situation. Give yourself the space you need to actually drive change for it. Thanks all.